Hello, good evening everyone and welcome to YLCC session on Career in Media, Entertainment and Tech Laws with Ms Sandhya Surendran. So to introduce ma'am a little bit, she is a 2007 graduate from Nalsar, Hyderabad. She has been practicing in the field of media, entertainment and tech laws. Ms Surendran has been associated with Amarchand Mangaldas Infosys and InMobi, which was India's first unicorn and Vice Media Group in the past. She started her independent legal and consulting firm Lexic in 2017 and is also the founder of Lex Talk Music, which is one of India's first podcasts on the music, business, and legal aspect of the industry. In 2021, Ms. Sandhya Surendran was featured in 2021 World IP Review list of influential women in IP. And in the year 2020, Ms. Surendran was also featured in ALB India 2020 Super 50 Lawyers. Thank you, ma'am, for being here. It is a great honor to have you here. So, ma'am, to begin with questions, my first question for the evening would be that what do you think is the scope of a career in media, entertainment, and tech laws in India? And what are the key responsibilities of a lawyer in this industry?
You know, it's how I think how you define your career today in this industry is very different from how it was maybe like 15 years ago, right? So I think um, in terms of scope, there is immense scope because I especially from the last I think for 2 years plus, especially in COVID, we've seen the surge of the technology industry, and along with the technology industry, the way content itself is being consumed. And content can be split into like general media and entertainment as well, right? Because media is what? It's not, is anything which is non-entertainment, so to speak. Or basically, you could say that entertainment is like a sub industry of media, because the media industry is, what are you talking about? Media is like a form of communication. So whether it's broadcast, whether it's music, whether it's film, all of it is part of media. And and I think as a lawyer in this industry, and given the kind of background I have had as a private practitioner as well as an in-house counsel, your responsibilities, I think, depend on which area you are in. So whether you're a external counsel, or basically as a part of a law firm in private practice, or as a lawyer in an in-house team, how you position yourself with your respective clients. Because as an in-house lawyer, your company is your client. So you have your internal clients, right? So how you deal with them and how you manage expectations, all of that is very key. But also understanding the industry, which I feel is a lot of times is lost on, uh, I mean, in especially in the legal fraternity, that not having context affects the quality of your work. So when I mean by context, I mean by understanding the industry. I've always felt that whether it was with Infosys, or whether it was with InMobi, whether it was with Vice, or even as a private practitioner, the clients that I worked with, I always wanted to understand what the business itself did. So if you're saying I work with a tech company today, it could mean anything. So when you're saying tech, you're saying, okay, if you're in maybe fintech or in ed tech, you go down to the depths of what that fintech company does, because even in fintech, you have so many categories. So based on that, you kind of have like a broad sense of understanding of, okay, what are the laws that impact a company which is working in this particular field of technology. So fintech, you'd have your RBI regulations that come into play. It wouldn't apply to your other regular IT companies. But these are very, very crucial because the industry that it's in is very specific and highly regulated, as opposed to edtech, where it's more consumer centric. So, what are the kind of laws that apply to you there? And apart from this, your overall understanding of how a business itself operates, not this specific business, that is where your commercial kind of thinking comes in, where you think of what are the possible risks associated in this business? How do you mitigate those risks? What are the things that you need to keep in mind when you're negotiating on behalf of a company, whether as an in-house counsel or as an external counsel? Those are the things I think, and I think this applies across industries. This is not specific to media, entertainment, or tech alone. So you have that bucket of, I think, characteristics or skill sets which come to a lawyer, which are essential to a lawyer in any industry, and there are certain skill sets which are very crucial to a lawyer who's practicing in this industry, in the media, entertainment, tech field. And again, like I said, I've had the good fortune of being involved in tech, in media and entertainment. So I put I mean, my nomenclature is an entertainment, media, and tech lawyer. So I'm grateful and thankful for that combination because it's helping me today. But today, if you're starting out as a lawyer today, you can focus on the specialization right away. And I think we can probably like get to that as, um, how, what are the key skills that you need as a lawyer in this industry? I think your people skills need to be on point because a lot of this is to do with you don't the product is either is very personal, right? Because if you're talking about media and content and even if from a technology perspective, like how it's affecting the person who's consuming it is most important. So even as a lawyer, you're thinking about all of that. And I'd like to probably differentiate between the kind of clients that I've dealt with, like the clients who are probably more technology centric, like maybe, I don't know, an app that is building or that is publishing content, where the product is the app itself, which is a platform, as opposed to working with musicians or someone from the film industry, where the person is the business, right? So how you deal with each of them is very important. So I think being pragmatic is, I think, fairly a critical and essential part of being a lawyer in this industry.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much. So I guess we've covered the skills part as well. But there's this second part to the second question, which says that so currently that you're working in the media and entertainment space, but
Yeah,
you started as working with Amarchand and Mangaldas, right?
yeah.
So how has your experience been, like working at India's leading law firm immediately, like after graduation, and how do you think that it contributed to the long-term growth as an in-house?
Very interesting question because I think for me, it was a dream come true. Because, when I got placed through campus recruitment. You're working at the best law firm, you're getting paid really like an amount that is unbelievable almost. And there's nothing, I couldn't have asked for a better start because it was, and I started off working with the general corporate team. I worked with them for like about 6 months and then moved into capital markets. Obviously, I never continued in either of those fields because it just turned out that I wasn't particularly interested in either of them. But the thing is, I think what was very, very critical about working with Amarchand in those initial 2 years was that it gives you a certain professionalism and it trains you in a certain work ethic and etiquette, which will not, which I think has played a very, very important part in how I have, like, grown as a lawyer. And everything, I mean, there are certain things that are good, there's good and bad. The bad might have been a lot more intense back then, but today when I look back at it, I'm just like, I mean, I don't really resent or hold anything against anybody for all of those experiences. I think it has still contributed to shaping me as the person I am today. Um, at least for sure, attention to detail is something which I probably had to pay a lot more attention to, so to speak. And I think that training was very key in that first 2 years because you don't, and back then, laptops or mobile phones and access to Google, and I mean, I'm saying access to resources were also very, intense. Like you didn't have everything at your fingertips where everything was easily accessible. You could just Google a term and say, okay, what does this mean? So there's no Google over there. You have to like go find a book and like flip through it and figure out or ask a senior and maybe get yelled at also in the process because you've screwed up on something. And where you're marking up documents, everything, it's all in hard copies. You're marking up hard copies. So you're looking at like 700 pages of documents and you're, marking it up with a pencil. Like all of that is, I think, is character building more than anything else, you know. And like I said, it contributed to a certain professionalism which has helped me in the long run because I'm thinking, oh, I shouldn't be missing this because now, yeah, there's nobody to scold me because I missed something, but I know the importance of including what was missed, because how it impacts the business or the client or whichever, whether it was in private practice or as in-house counsel. So that I think um, that kind of that respect of being a lawyer, that that attitude of being a lawyer, like commanding that kind of like take me seriously, I'm here to like do business, and that whole thing, I think there's a lot that I took from Amarchand, and I'm very, very grateful for that.
Okay. So, ma'am, there's this additional question that popped up, like while
Yeah.
you were saying, while you were saying about Amarchand and what it taught you. So, ma'am,
Mm-hmm.
after COVID or like during COVID, right, things
Mm.
have definitely gotten remote. Like, let's say,
Yeah.
obviously now they're getting back to normal, but then
Yeah.
because of this remote culture, right, like everybody is sitting in their homes, everybody is doing, like, everybody's working alone, right? There's
Mm.
no teamwork per se, right? So,
Mm.
there's no interaction, there's no personal human interaction. All we're
Mm.
interacting is via this, right?
Mm.
So,
Mm.
I mean, that sense of professionalism, do you think that if somebody is really looking forward to, like, let's say, make a career in something, I mean, definitely all the fields are people centric, but let's say, like you said,
Mm.
that, this has helped you later on in dealing with things, right? So, do you
Mm.
think that students now, since they've gotten so comfortable, they're like,
Mm.
now we want remote internships, we want remote jobs and stuff. Do you
Yeah.
think that they should rather, they need to step out to learn that, because
Ab
they cannot learn this remotely? Like, just
Absolutely.
a small opinion
Yeah,
on
yeah,
this.
just remember.
Absolutely. Because I think there is those people skills are not skills that you get online. I mean, I think right now, I mean, so to speak, everything is available online for a price, but these in-person experiences, I don't think any online internship will, uh, you know, like replace. And I think that whole everything from body language, the way you conduct yourself around people, um, all of that makes a difference. And I know I'm not too big on a very formal hierarchy and sir and ma'am and all of that, but even though I have experienced it in my career, and I think like the generations today are a lot more casual, which is great. I think that gives them they're a lot more confident about themselves, the way they ask questions, because of the hierarchy has kind of disintegrated over a period of time. But this in-person ability, or like, or these in-person people skills which you get from an actual interaction with a senior lawyer or like another client, or being part of a meeting where you're with your senior partner or like general counsel, and discussing something, strategizing internally with a team or with a client or whoever, or whether it's internally within the team itself. All those experiences, you can't replicate that on a Google Meet. It's like, it's something, if you have the opportunity to do a physical internship or an in-person internship, take it. I mean, I understand that remote internships really help, especially today. And it just, opened up opportunities for anybody sitting anywhere. But I think if you have the chance of visiting the office or meeting those people that you're working with in person, take it. Ask for it if you can. If it's a company or a firm that is willing to maybe fund that travel, or, say maybe they have like a team dinner, see if you can be a part of it. And if you're in the same city and if the office is up and running, you don't have to go every day. Ask them for the option of, can I do a combination of a hybrid of working from home and attending the office if needed? Because especially as a young lawyer, those experiences are very, very crucial in determining how you turn out to be later. Because as a lawyer, I think 99% of your work is uh, managing people, managing expectations, managing interpersonal relationships. So if you're not able to get that right, then it gets, you might you might not see the kind of traction that you want to see in your career. That's what I mean. Again, whatever I'm saying is based on my experience. It's not like the be all and end all of things. And I think everybody has different dynamics and have different things that work for them. Like in my last company that I worked at, Vice, we had an intern uh, who she's been working remote. Like, I have never met her in person. She attended a training session, but she kept in touch. She kept in touch. She reached out. She was following whatever we were doing. She reached out when there was an internship position. And then, so all of that, even though we had not met, it still worked out. And we still keep in touch. And she reaches out to me saying that I have this offer in mind, and I want to do this with my career. So those relationships can be built. It also depends on who the person is. But I'm just saying that this in-person experience applies to everybody. So say you are someone who's not very outgoing, or someone who's not very comfortable texting a person or reaching out to someone on mail, that having that in-person interaction, kind of removes that. So for that reason, I think a combination of the two is important for you to, get that overall holistic skill set.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. I was actually thinking about this for some time now, and now that you mentioned, I thought it would be great to have an opinion from somebody else as well. Okay, so ma'am, we take on to the next question. So the next question is about your role as an in-house lawyer at Vice Media, and how was your last role different from your previous roles, which were like at Infosys, InMobi, or Lex Talk? And what were your key responsibilities as a senior legal counsel at Vice?
So I think obviously the big difference in each of these roles has been the stage I was at in my career. So when I joined Infosys, I was still fairly I was just like a couple of years into practicing as a lawyer. So you had like a hierarchy. It was a much larger team. You had a very defined set of responsibilities. I was handling commercial contracts for a couple of regions, and then I had like a reporting structure where everything went through a manager. So it was a very protected environment in terms of everything. Like I had somebody to fall back on. With InMobi, it changed completely because I was technically the only lawyer when I started. Like the general counsel was working as an external consultant. He was I think he joined on board maybe a month after I did. And he was very you know what, this is your baby. You basically do what you want with it. If you have any problem, you let me know and I will step in for you. And so I had to kind of figure out a lot on my own. And whenever I needed help, he was there to support me. But it was everything from understanding, because it is a very new industry. Ad tech in 2012 was just starting because smartphones had still not picked up the way it is today. Like that was 10 years ago. And we couldn't even fathom, okay, what are the things that would apply to the ad tech industry? How would it, how do you determine that, okay, this is what you need to put into a contract template? How does a contract template for this industry even look like? Like those kind of things, a lot of ground up learning happened. So again, very, very different role from Infosys, which is so protected. And then from InMobi, I had my freelance stint where I had my own practice with Lexic and Lex Talk Music, which was again a completely new experience because there's no concept of a holiday. There is no concept of a fixed salary, comfortable paycheck that comes at the end of the month. So there's a different set of stress points in that kind of an environment. But I felt most comfortable in that role because it was more I was a counsel. So I had that kind of relationship with the clients where they would call me, and I know I'm accountable for the advice that I give because there's no manager, there's no law firm or company to fall back on. And these individuals that I'm working with are relying on me to give them correct and appropriate legal advice for them to actually plan their lives around. So it worked very differently as a private practitioner. Then again, going back as in-house with Vice was, I think there was a familiarity because I was coming back to a company setup. So you're taking decisions as a company as a whole, but I was in a senior role. So here, the kind of industry that I was working in was also significantly different because it was very, content heavy, content centric. But I know that the advice that I'm giving again, it wasn't too different from the kind of work or the experience that I had in my private practice because of the kind of responsibility that I had. Because they were relying on my advice as, okay, this is what we're going to go ahead with. There's no there's no sounding board in terms of like, okay, do I need to take an approval from somebody? All of that wasn't there. There was no, it wasn't very hierarchical, so to speak. But it was a very, very intense 18 months with Vice. It was a very short period that I was with them. And I decided to take a step back because I wanted to, like, I was spending a lot more time than I wanted to at, like, just sitting at my desk. And I was like, okay, there was a lot of like personal reasons where I decided, okay, I wanted to like get back to doing my private practice. I missed working with the music industry. So it just, I was in that stage where I could actually take the decision and come back. But if I'd probably been at Vice maybe 10 years ago, I would have continued with the company because the experience was great. And you had like different kind of issues being thrown at you from all angles because of the kind of industry that Vice operated in. So you would have regulatory issues, not just in India, but like, other regions that Vice had content being shown. You had like production legal kind of issues that would come in because Vice had a lot of original production work that is going on. And of course, in terms of news, which is what it's most known for, the kind of news stories that we covered, fact checking, verifying, all of that would come through the legal team. So it was a really, again, very different, very intense, and a lot of learning. So each of these roles I've had, I think the best thing from each of these roles is that I've learned so much. And all those learnings have contributed in the kind of expertise or the experience that I have today. So yeah.
Okay. Someone that you've mentioned that you've been like in different roles, right? And you've had like an experience of almost 15 years, right?
Yeah.
So since you've been doing so many things, you've been at so many places in so many positions, I would say. So how do you think like how do you like keep your mental health in check while you're doing all of this? It's like super important because one small
It is. It is.
inconvenience.
And I'm so glad that we are talking about it today because we don't talk about it enough. And this is something which I can give it to you in writing that lawyers in general, I'm sure every single one has at some point had like some kind of a mental breakdown. There are some people that I mean, obviously the earlier generations might not want to admit it because they perceive how mental health is, dealt with in a very different way. They don't even think of it as an actual health issue in quotes. So I have seen that change from when in everything, like having the attitude of your colleagues around you, how that impacts your mental health. The industry that you're working in can be really stressful. That also impacts your mental health. The kind of hours you're spending on work. So law firm life, having a toxic work environment, which is unfortunately the case in, I think, most of the large law firms for whatever reason. And I'm not going to take names, but it's it's like a given that, oh, if you don't spend 16 hours in office in a day, are you even working? So, and I think it's high time that changed, and it is changing. So there are a lot of law firms which are making a lot of progress on that front. Smaller law firms which want to establish that it's about the kind of work that we do and not the number of hours that we spend, and everything. And mental health is, I think you should be thinking about it from day one. Learn to draw boundaries from day one. You shouldn't be putting in more work than you're being paid for. This expectation that I am I have to like put in 1000% for me to do well is not fair. See, the thing is, I'm honestly a minority in the way I think, because that's not how the industry itself operates. I'm hoping that we are moving in the right direction, because I think the more of my age group is probably coming up in leadership roles, so they're changing the way this approach is towards mental health, and to actually building a work environment that is nurturing and sustainable and encouraging, and not like toxic, where you have a manager who's screaming at you and shouting at you, making you feel bad. Those things are traumatic for a young lawyer. And I'm talking about this from experience, because I know how much of an impact it had on my confidence, on my ability to think that I'm actually, or that I'm even a good lawyer. So In fact, like, I mean, when I got the email from Samanika about this, it just occurred to me that, if if I'd known that I would have someone reach out to me to talk about my experience, like maybe, I don't know, like 12 years ago, 15 years ago, I would have just laughed because I was so convinced that I was good for nothing. Because that is what, the managers and everybody around you would uh, convince you, because there be one mistake which would kind of snowball into something else, and you are expected to do certain things. There's politics that you need to be part of, and you know how it is in certain large mainstay law firms, which I think have probably changed for the better now. It's not as intense as it was maybe 15 years ago or 20 years ago. In-house that way, I think has a lot more. I think they are a lot more conscious about this. That work-life balance has been. I think they've always focused on work-life balance, like inevitably, because you're an employee. You're not billing hours there. So a Monday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday is off. All of that is there. But toxic work environments exist even in in-house uh, legal teams. It's not like it doesn't. You still have politics. You have someone else walking away with credit for the work that you've done. All of that. And people putting unreasonable timelines. I want this like within 6 hours. I want this within 10 hours. Send you an email in the morning, follow up with you like 2 hours later, and then 2 hours later, then call you as well. And today you have so many avenues to be contacted at. You will have someone emailing you, then chatting with you, then sending you a WhatsApp text, then Skyping you, and then maybe DMing you on Instagram. Like, and all of this has happened to me, which is why I'm talking about it. So it's just that so you can't, what I've realized is you can't really expect the company or the workplace to actually look after your mental health for you. They might now, for example, Vice has is great that way, in the sense that it gives you the option of, they do have mental health wellness awareness sessions where they offer access to counselors and all of that. But the the company itself and the kind of work itself, that work it does is immensely stressful. So even though you have access to all of that, are you, as an individual, are you allowing yourself to take care of your mental health? Where do you draw the line? Where do you say that, okay, you know what, I don't want to be working more than 8 hours a day. I shouldn't be working more than 8 hours a day. You're not going to be productive if you keep doing that to yourself. And okay, occasionally you want to pull an all-nighter and finish something because you want to prioritize, that is fine. But if that becomes a continuous thing, it will take a toll on you. It will take a toll on you in every which way, especially today, where you're not even interacting with people, you're just sitting in front of a desk and you're in a room the whole day. You won't realize time fly. So you'll check in at like 9 in the morning, you have like 10 minutes for breakfast. You probably take like a break to, go have like a coffee, have lunch, maybe, and then you're back at your desk. You don't have like a set of colleagues to go out and hang out with and have chai with and like talk about like, the other team or something, that in-person experience isn't there. So, which makes it all the more important for you to focus on, be very mindful of how much time you're focusing on work. Be quality over quantity. Don't spend 16 hours in front of your screen. Don't spend with just like, oh, and panicking about everything and responding to all the emails that come to you at the same time. And as a young lawyer, it's easier to fall prey to this because it's harder for you to say no. So, but that's something which I've realized, I noticed in my colleagues and my team advice, which I have like tremendous respect for, the ability to draw boundaries and say, no, it's a weekend. I am not going to work on a weekend. To be able to say that and say that you've sent it to me on a Friday evening, I will pick it up on Monday morning and leave it at that. You don't have to be rude. You don't have to get personal or attack the person for like sending out to you. They have their own, pressures. They're probably sending it to you because they have certain deadlines to be met. But their lack of planning should not affect your sanity, right? So the thing is about, I think it's important, I think it's beyond important that managing mental health is very, very, I think, I don't think people have like emphasized the importance of that enough, especially for lawyers. In fact, I think every law school should do a session on mental health and incorporating how do you balance mental health with work etiquette. So at what point is it at what point of being, meticulous at work is impacting your mental health? You have to like figure that out. So learn to say no to things which you know is going to stretch you thin. Learn to be able to set reasonable timelines for yourself. You're a human being. If you think you need more time, ask for it. And and as long as you're doing it respectfully, politely, and not getting personal and attacking the person, there is no reason for the other person to say no, unless it's like a real like emergency situation when someone is dying, or like you're maybe, I don't know, the company is going to lose like a $2 billion deal or something like that. But if all of those things, like those kind of business deals, we are all well aware that time is something which can always be managed. So set expectations even with your teams when you're speaking to your manager. If you find your manager being, I don't know, too harsh or too toxic, learn to stand up for yourself because nobody else is going to do that for you. And trust me, that relationship, standing up for yourself and being confident about yourself, force yourself to do it. And the only way to, like, if you don't really need somebody to put you down to keep you grounded, you need to, like, you understand that yes, you're a young lawyer, you're learning. If you've made a mistake, acknowledge it. There's no harm in acknowledging it. But if somebody's being obnoxiously rude by putting you down and telling, oh, why are you being so dumb, or like using, name calling and all of that, stand up for yourself. Say that I'm not going to engage or continue this conversation if you're going to be disrespectful. And no matter how senior that person is. And I think that is where you need to do it for yourself. Because unfortunately, today, we don't have the kind of infrastructure where mental health is automatically given importance. Where I think people are now slowly beginning to acknowledge that being kind to your colleagues is a more productive thing than being stressed out and like screaming at each other. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. Now, one thing, like you've mentioned that, you should work for, according to how much you're paid, and then, like you need to stand up for yourself,
Yeah.
and, things along these lines, which are definitely on an individual level, very important from the very beginning. But do you think that this is still sort of a privilege, like, that the experienced lawyers have, but as compared to us, like, people who are just starting out, right? Us telling maybe a senior partner or a manager, whoever, that it's a Friday, I'm not going to do this on the weekend. Sorry, I'll take it up on Monday, is not something that would really obviously in the long run, it obviously in the mental health sphere, it would definitely benefit us. But then, but we still, let's say it's a first job, right? And the manager goes that you have to do this, and I want this first thing Monday. So how do you think, as a young lawyer who's just starting out, tackle with such problems in order to, work on their mental health?
Like I said, there is no harm in asking. Ask, would that mean, is it okay if I take time till the end of day Monday? Because I would prefer not to work on a weekend, but if it's that urgent, I can do it. So make it very clear to them that you ideally don't like working on a weekend, but you'll do it because they are asking you to. I mean, and trust me, like anybody with a conscience will feel bad if you say that. So they will say, okay, yeah, end of day is fine. End of day Monday is fine. Unless they get back and say, you know what, I'm really sorry to ask you to do this on a weekend. And then that dynamic is what you're looking at. So how you ask for it makes a lot of importance. I understand, yeah, you have a 60-year-old equity partner telling you to send it on Monday morning. I get it. I mean, but if an equity partner is asking you to send it on a Monday morning, you'll have to like look at where you're drawing the line. That's what I said. How is it affecting you? Like, to what extent is your work ethic being compromised for in favor of your mental health and vice versa? You have to draw that balance. So if it's something if you think that you can do it, if you are not comfortable doing it. So now, if an equity partner is going to ask you, more often than not, you are not going to think about this inconvenience that you will have to work over the weekend. because the equity partner is asking you to do it. So that the situation also demands how you're going to look at it. But if you have like something which everybody is like uh, chilling on, and then you are being expected to work on the weekend only because you have never said no before, that is something which you need to pick up on. But if it's if the entire team is pulling their weight and saying, let's finish this and work through the weekend and cut this so that all of us are sharing workload, that's something which you can actually agree to and maybe do something about. Because you're doing it collectively, right? And it's something which you're doing willingly as a team. So which is all of these things, that's what I said. There's no like hard and fast black and white to this. Look at how you are feeling about the situation. Are you feeling exploited? Are you really tired? Are you unwell? Are you feeling stretched out and thin? Then that's when you learn to stand up and say no. Maybe working on that weekend might like I have worked on weekends when even when people haven't asked me, because I know that then my Monday will not be that crowded. So I've done like a little work on a Saturday, or I've like checked a few mails on a Sunday just to be better prepared on a Monday. Nobody's asked me to do it. When people have the only times like there has been a situation where I've been told, oh, we need to get this out Monday first half, and I wasn't very keen on working on a Saturday Sunday, especially because I was traveling. And I sheepishly went to my manager and I said, I'm actually traveling over the weekend, so I don't know how much of it I'll be able to do. And I had planned this ahead. He wasn't happy, but he told me, he said, okay, I'll try and push it till Monday end of day, latest by Tuesday morning, but get it done by Monday if you can. But it is just about asking. They're all human beings, no, at the end of the day. And don't be scared. I think a lot of the problems, at least based on what I'm just speaking very honestly from my experience, a lot of the things that I ended up putting myself through was because I was scared of asking. So yeah, I hope that answers your
Thank you.
question.
Yes, definitely, ma'am. Okay, so now I'll take the next question, which
Yeah.
is a very question that I was personally interested in. That that you worked at Infosys, then you worked for InMobi, which is an edtech company, for more than 2 years. Then I just wanted to know, how did you shift from being a capital lawyer at Amarchand, then to a risk management and compliance at Infosys, to finally in InMobi? And what were your like internal motivation factors, I would say, which contributed to such like diverse exposures?
So I think it honestly wasn't planned. So when I in college, I always liked intellectual property rights as a subject. I liked corporate law too, but I wasn't very sure. I hadn't really done an IP internship in college. I had done everything what I'd done was very corporate law based. So automatically the assumption was that yes, this is the profile that I will go for. So when Amarchand happened and when the job offer came through, nobody in their right mind would have said no to it. I mean, at least then. So but then once I started working, I realized, okay, this is not something that I was interested in. It wasn't, or maybe it was too early for me to decide. Also, possibly, maybe if I had continued a few years, I might have become good at it, or I don't know what. But that time in 2008, there was the recession that hit, and all your capital markets deals came to a grinding halt. So they basically told us that the team would be placed in other um, teams, like other sectors. And I think they wanted to put me in projects and infrastructure, which I was not interested in at all. But I had interned at Infosys, and I was working in Bombay at the time. I'd interned at Infosys, and I knew the kind of work they did, and I liked that. I liked the company, I liked the team, and I wanted to move to Bangalore. So I said, okay. I applied, reached out to them, and I asked them if they were looking to hire. And they said, yes, okay, why don't you send in your resume? And that happened. And I was very thankful for that, because Infosys gave me the foundation to understanding end-to-end contracts. So any kind, like if you contracts is, and I think honestly, contracts is like the foundation of almost all your legal work. How you draft and review and negotiate contracts is, I think, maybe major portion of like a commercial lawyer's life. So that was like a really good experience. And but after 3 years of only doing commercial contracts, I thought to myself that okay, maybe I'm kind of like putting myself in a bucket of doing only contracts. And as a lawyer, I should probably have a little more experience, and especially as a young, like 3-4 years of experience as a lawyer. So InMobi, I realized was hiring. So I had like friends who were working there. And I said, okay, you know what? It's a new company, it's a new industry, nobody really knows. Might as well just take this blind leap of faith. Like, I'm a tech lawyer technically, because back then, when you called yourself a tech lawyer, you were someone who worked with an Infosys or an IBM or a Wipro or a Cognizant. That was what tech lawyer meant. Because Google and Facebook and all were still very, very, very new. And their lawyers, the they weren't really hiring like the way, these kind of companies were. And Google was, of course, but getting through to Google was like, like winning a lottery or something. So, and then InMobi seemed to be based on one aspect of what Google did. So it was quite interesting. And I interviewed with them, and they said, okay, we just want you to like figure out like the kind of questions that they had were all based on commercial contracts and liabilities associated with commercial contracts. So it seemed like a logical next step, and that happened. And I think with InMobi was when my experience with media and entertainment started. Because then InMobi got, since it was in the advertising space, there was a lot of media and content related stuff that kept coming in. So we had like some amount of licensing, we had like some amount of like content regulatory questions. What are the implications of data privacy in terms of content? All of that started coming up. And then 5 years with InMobi, almost 5 years with InMobi, and I think I kind of hit a plateau. I wanted to do something which wasn't like the routine, same thing day in, day out. Like it was a very impulse decision that I wanted to leave and do something on my own. And at that point of time, I think my intention actually wasn't to continue being a lawyer. I wanted to like leave law and move into music full time. So into like production and DJing and all of that. It's just like this, I don't know, I can't really call it a midlife crisis because I just turned 30 or like 32. So it was like maybe, I don't know, quarter life crisis. But I don't believe in coincidences, because I think that was the best decision I took, because it kind of made my learning curve the next 18 months was quite intense. And that's when I met my husband, now my boyfriend back then, who was a musician, and he was just like, he said, you're a lawyer, and he's like, you will probably understand what copyrights and royalties are. And I had a lot of people asking me questions in the music fraternity, very basic questions about copyright. So that's how it started. It was a very organic, like by chance thing. And it brought me back to college times when I realized that I really enjoyed IP as a subject. And I used to follow the music industry very closely. So I knew exactly what was happening. I knew who was suing whom. And tech was coming into the picture. So I was following all those trends. And it was a very, I don't know, like a happy coincidence that people are asking me questions to which I knew the answers. So it wasn't planned. And then I think by the end of 2016, by early 2017, I said, okay, I'd already started like consulting for some people. And I had a couple of folks from the independent music scene start tell me that, okay, you know what, will you review this contract for me? Will you negotiate this deal for me? I've been approached by a label, and I just got into it. And before I knew it, I realized that there weren't too many lawyers doing this. So, especially independent practitioners, you had law firms, mostly in Bombay. You had an occasional odd set of maybe a single lawyer or part of a law firm who would maybe do some amount of production legal work or some amount of record label contracting in the South. But there were very few lawyers who you could turn around and say that, yeah, this person specializes in the music industry and is, and my background in technology gave me the whole, I think, helped me understand licensing better. And licensing lies at the base of the music industry. The business of the music industry is, I think, founded on licensing, and everything that you need to use in terms of music is all a license. And I think that then everything, just one thing after the other, just kind of like snowballed into Lexic being, what it is today. And it's not some big firm, it's just me. I've had like one associate work with me in the past who then joined me advice. But it's a great space to be in because I think it's changing every single day. And my experience of understanding how commercial transactions worked at Infosys with that technology and licensing background, to understanding how InMobi worked as a business in the ad tech space, and again how content and how distribution of content worked, to then practicing on my own with Lexic and working with musicians and all of that, has given me like an overall holistic experience of being this counsel to artists and entities and companies who work in the media and entertainment space.
Collector referral programs now where
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, if you're asking me about the more opportunities, there are so many opportunities. And I think it's just about how you perceive it. Like, you want to take a chance and do something a little different. And there might be, I know, I can understand that, you want to take the safer route of going with an established firm and an established in-house counsel and all of that. And that's great. There's no judgment at all there. But it's just, if you're interested in the field, keep reading about it, because there's something new happening in it every day. And hone your basic skills. Your basic skills for a lawyer, which are very important, would be, understanding, again, like I said, work ethic, commercial contracting. And if you're interested in the media, entertainment, and tech side, licensing is very important. Understanding how intellectual property rights work, and that is trademarks. Trademarks will work differently in different industries. Copyright specifically works very, very differently across industries. It works differently in IT. It works very, very differently in music, and it has its own set of nuances in film and production. How copyright works in each of these very, very different. So I think understanding that and applying it and saying that, okay, I have a flair for this, and it doesn't happen overnight. A lot of us might, I think I started off thinking that, honestly, I started off with law thinking that I'd become a criminal lawyer. I'm far from it. I'm probably closer to being a criminal than a criminal lawyer. So, but it's just, I think everything evolves. Like, you understand certain things, you realize that you're enjoying doing this, and then kind of, mix it together and, figure out what you want to do. But that said, I just wanted to add, and this is a conversation that I had with my team the other day, that, it's okay not to be passionate about your job also. Maybe a job is just a means to an end. And if you do something repeatedly, you get good at it. Like, I wasn't great at contracts at all in the beginning. I would miss like a million things. I've been yelled at and screamed at and made to cry over things that I've missed. But after you do it for 15 years, if you're still not good at it, then something's wrong with you. So yeah, so it's not, I don't think I'm an expert because like I'm exceptionally intelligent, but it's just that, like I said, because you've done something repeatedly, you've kind of become good at it. And my interest now lying in entertainment and media, because I've understood licensing well. I have a flair for tech and understanding how tech works, and I like combining all of that. It just worked out really well for me. A few things that I've figured out on the way are whatever I've shared today.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, ma'am. So I'll take two more questions, like from what I have, before we
Sure.
take questions from the audience.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So, ma'am,
Yeah.
the two things that I guess everybody is interested, right? First was about, I want to talk about Lex Talk music, right? So
Yeah,
you've been working on this for 3 years now, right?
yeah.
And so can you tell us like how the idea of podcast came around? And what did you think that, okay, now I'll start a podcast?
So honestly, again, I'm bored. I don't know what to do. Let me just do something. Let me just figure out. It's very easy to start a podcast. It actually started with these three videos that I put up on Facebook explaining how certain clauses in production contracts, like music production contracts, worked. And they were very long videos. They were like 10 minute, like it came up to like around 30 minutes. And then one of the clients that I was working with, who's also a really good friend now, Rajiv Rao, um, he he texted me and he was just like, he said, you know what, Sandhya? He said, you should just start a podcast. And I was just like, what do you mean, like podcast? I said, what, I'll just record what I have to say and put it somewhere. He's like, yeah, we don't have anything like this. He's like, there's no place that we can, and nobody's going to like, go scroll down your profile and check for the video to like, remember what this is about. And then I said, yeah, actually, it's not a bad idea. So then that's how it came up. It came about. And then the name, of course, like Lex's Law and Lex Talk Music. So it was just it was a name that occurred to me like some time back, and Lexic is also derived from that, like Lex and music and Lexic. A very like, I think the origin story is probably the lamest ever, but yeah, so Lex Talk Music started like that. And then after the first two episodes, I was just like, so my husband Sanjeev, who's also a musician, he told me, he's just like, listen, this first two episodes, nobody's going to listen to. He's just going on and on and on, talking about legal stuff. Nobody cares. So I said, yeah, actually, that's true. I said, but I've put it out there more than anything else. It's for me to, I started it as a option to redirect clients to my podcast so that they could understand certain basics instead of me spending time on the phone explaining it to them. And then I said, okay, like time to like, ruffle things up. And I said, let me bring in people that I can talk to. Let me bring in two other lawyers. And that's when I reached out to Priyanka, and she was just like, of course, she's like, I'd love to chat with you. And we had like a really fun conversation. And Manognya, who's also like, she's a junior from law school, who is also, both of them, Kimani and Manognya, are both lawyers in the media and entertainment industry who I really respect and look up to, and I think they've done like fantastic work with all the stuff that they have done. And we had amazing conversations and like sharing experiences of what kind of clients we have interacted with, and like the silly things that clients have asked, and like some of the really interesting clients that we have had, like which make you learn and like read up and want to grow more as a professional. So that did really well. So then I said, okay, you know what? This is the format I'm going to follow. I'm going to bring in people from the music industry because each of them had so much of information to share. And this information is not information you can get anywhere. No Google, no publication is going to keep record of all of this. So, and I mean, every time, and all the people that I've spoken to, have invited as guests, are all people I've had conversations with before. And I've always been like, my God, I learned so much from chatting with this person. Then I said, okay, this is how I'm going to make a list of the people that I'm going to interview. And each of the people that I've interviewed so far have been from different sides of the music industry business. So you've had, of course, the lawyers. You've had Ritnika, who's in the distribution business. She also understands music publishing really well. She's written a book on independent music, and I have kind of focused it more on the independent music, so to speak. I've not really, because India is very unique in that context, that you have a film industry which has a music industry as a subset, but it's kind of breaking away from that whole format, with the independent scene actually becoming going towards like becoming an actual industry, so to speak. And so then understanding that evolution, speaking to an artist themselves, then speaking to somebody who is a part of a streaming platform from Spotify, then speaking to somebody who is, who basically spearheads the South Asian community of songwriters, represents them with PRS, which is a copyright society in the UK. So, and understanding the industry from their perspective and how their respective companies work in that field was, I think, there was so much for me to like take back, and I have learned so much from each of those conversations that I shamelessly promote the podcast saying that please listen to it because I've learned so much. And I think each of you will learn from it, because I also encourage like law students who have really reached out and who have training sessions that I've done in for law schools on music and law to check out the podcast, because I've realized having context, especially in the music industry, has been so helpful for me and to me as a lawyer. Because I've been in situations where the lawyer on the other side has zero idea how the music industry works, with no with all due respect, I mean, I'm not judging their competence or anything, but not having context and not understanding how the music industry works uh, is is a flip for the client as well, and it makes things really difficult in a business deal, because you're explaining basics to the other person. You're saying that, okay, this is not how it works, these are, and your industry practices are very, very different from what the law says. So like getting all of that sorted and out of the way is, I think, so for me. So I've had people reach out and tell me that, oh, Lex Talk music is really helpful. Then I said, okay, maybe I'm doing the right thing with this. So I want to get that. I've not been very regular with it in the last 1 year. So that is something which I'm planning to fix. And hopefully a lot more interesting episodes are going to come out. And then now with NFTs and crypto and blockchain, like rocketing, music is also catching up. There's a lot of room for it to grow, but it's an interesting time that we are at.
Okay, so if you want more information on topics along these lines, then definitely the
Yeah.
podcast is where we should go first.
Yes,
Then,
please.
if you cannot find, then you should Google things.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, ma'am. So the last question that I wanted to ask personally is about
Yeah.
Lexic. So I guess everybody is like, I had so many questions in the chat box also asking that, what is the process of applying for an internship or a job? What are the skills that you look for when you're looking to hire people? And does your
Okay.
firm hire often? Yes.
Okay, so I think there's someone who's asked about how to apply to Vice for an internship. Um, there's so I think they're looking for interns maybe on and off. They probably like twice a year. We've not really had too many interns in the past. We had like one person. So I can put you in touch with the lawyer who's currently part of the legal team who can look into internship requests. But with Lexic, um, honestly, I am open to taking interns. Maybe by the end of the year, I'll have more clarity, because I've literally just wrapped up my my role with Vice on the 30th of September, and I'm just like taking this time this month to kind of like figure out, taking some time off and figure out like what next. Um, but by December, I will definitely want to plan in such a way that I might have a couple of interns who will work with me on a regular basis and not just going to be like a limited time, because I'm looking at building relationships with young lawyers and have them part of uh, Lexic in, because we're not, I mean, I'm not, Lexic is not a company, it's not like a big firm, it's just me. So it's just I'd like for it to grow to be a bigger, much bigger like actual organization, but that'll hopefully be by sometime next year. But I think you have my email ID, so maybe sometime mid-December, if any of you are interested. But I'm looking for someone who has experience, who has like some basic idea of how intellectual property rights works, especially in copyrights and royalties and licensing, some fair idea of how contracting works. So preferably fourth year and fifth year students, because then I can look at actually having them join me maybe full time at a later stage. And this can be like a combination of a mix or like hybrid, because I don't really have an office right now, so everyone's working from home. But I do plan to have like a couple of desks maybe taken out at a co-working space by early 2023, so we can figure that out. um so yeah, that, and key skills, like I said, understanding of IP, and commercial contracts. And please don't send me emails with hi and no. Like when you're sending an email to me, trust me, this is very, very important. Your communication skills need to be good, because um I understand that this maybe can sound a little I don't know, like classist, but and I'm not looking at like you like Shakespeare in English or like grammatically correct either. I can understand like all of us have different ways of communicating, but don't send a email without a subject. Don't send an email with just hi and not addressing the person. Like all of that really, tells on you as a professional. And I can understand if you're like a first year student, you're still figuring things out, but after your third year, fourth year, you should really like pick on this and be, you don't have to like write a long essay. Introduce yourself, say this is why you're applying, this is what you'd like to be a part of, and send in your resume with a picture of yourself. Makes so much of a difference. Um, and I think, yeah, we can figure it out. And not, this is not just for me, this is to any internship you're applying. So if you are interested in like interning or doing some kind of a training with me, we can speak sometime by like late December. So you start emailing me by like mid-December, so I can like take a look at it during that month, and I'll get back to everyone by Jan. So it gives me time to like go through the list of profiles that I've got, because I do have a few people who have already sent in their profiles and said that they are interested in working with me, like even if it's after 3 months. So um, please feel free to like send in your resumes and your profiles with like a little write-up about yourself, why you want to work in this kind of industry, and that'll be great. That'll be very helpful.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
No
I guess
problem.
that would be all from my side.
Okay.
So I have questions. Yes. Yeah. So I have questions from the audience, which are there in the chat box. We'll take them up very quickly. We do not have much time. So I'll just
Okay, sure,
cover
sure.
whatever we've not covered. Yes.
Yeah.
So first of all, okay, so there's this one question by Saksham. It says that since technology is updating day by day, how will someone tackle it rather than being called a generalist in place of a specialist? What strategies should be adopted to tackle this?
Great question. Actually, I saw this in the beginning. So this is exactly what I was talking about. When I started off in 2007, being a technology lawyer meant being a lawyer who was working on information technology, which is basically like your IT, ITES. So today, technology is an underlying thing in every industry. So you pick, if you, I would recommend that you, if you have an understanding of how the industry works, then, and if you prefer that industry, then it's easy for you to go down that path. Because what are the, as technology as a whole, there is a whole bunch of regulations that apply to it. Data privacy is key. So data privacy, commercial, so data privacy, some amount of IP, which is like licensing and all of that, are basic to technology, and commercial contracts. These three things are basic to technology. And then everything else is specialization based on the industry. So fintech, like I said, you may need to have an interest in that kind of regulation, like because it's highly regulated. So if you're someone who has an aptitude for banking and finance, and you enjoyed those classes in college, maybe you can look at that. EdTech again is more consumer centric. It's like content focused. It will have I don't know, like standards which would apply to it from consumer law perspective, all of that, apart from your general commercial contracts and everything, right? Then you have health tech, which is again looking at medical medical related regulations. Data privacy is very, very important there again. And of course, I think the most, I think common right now is media tech. And media tech is basically everything you're seeing. So even whether it's Zoom, whether it's Google, whether it's Facebook, all of that is media tech. And there again, it's a mix of so many things, because you look at the company itself, how it's operating will have like different regulatory aspects. You will have data privacy because this is content that's applicable. You have content regulations because there's content that's applicable. Then you need to understand how distribution will work. So how is content being distributed? Is it just content, or do we have advertisements being distributed? If advertisements are in the picture, then we need to look at the kind of regulations that apply to all of that. And then maybe you're looking at like, content platforms like, I don't know, like a Netflix or a Woot or like those kind of companies, or working with a law firm that caters to those kind of companies. Then there's a set of regulations which apply to that industry. So if you ask me today, whatever you're going to be working with, whichever client you're going to be working with, technology is going to be there at the base of it. So for that purpose, I think commercial contracts and data privacy and licensing are three pillars of this practice area. And in terms of like, I think you can't, even being called a generalist is going to be hard today, because you automatically will start specialization. Like now, I know that younger lawyers who are graduating are directly joining a fintech. So they're automatically specialized. So they will be specializing in fintech. But it's not that hard for you to make the switch. If you're jumping from a fintech to an edtech, it's not rocket science. But jumping from an edtech to a fintech is going to be difficult, because you're looking at the industry, which is if it's highly regulated or not. I hope that answers your question, Sakshi.
Okay, so ma'am, yeah. There are internship questions, but I guess you've answered most of them, like how to apply and what all things are required. So like that's covered. So ma'am, there's one question by Niket. He says that he wants to build a technology law or TMT practice in the long run. So he's like, which place that he should prefer over, like to start, and why should he prefer that particular organization?
So again, like I said, I don't think there's no right answer to this, Niket, because I know people who have worked with law firms all their life and never really wanted to start their own private practice, even though they could have, because they had a very loyal client base. I know people who have worked at in-house counsel as in-house counsel for a major part of their life, and then moved as partner to a law firm. And people like me who have like worked with a mix of everything and then started my own practice. But if you so it all depends on the kind of interest that you have in uh, and the kind of, I don't know, like how I think from a logical perspective, I think starting off with private practice is good, because it gives you a good foundation as to how to deal with clients and all of that, right? Like that work ethic thing. But that said, working in-house will help you understand the business really well, like how the industry functions. So there's no, I would think, go with your gut. Like if you think that there is a certain law firm which does the kind of work that you are really interested in based on maybe internships that you have had, then maybe try getting a job with them, because that I think will help you get perspective of how private practice runs and what to expect when you have your own practice. But that said, I would recommend that you do both private practice and in-house, because the perspective that you get when you're working as an in-house counsel is very, very, I think, helpful when you have your own practice. Because in-house, there's a certain skill set that in-house counsels have, which which external counsels don't, or like private practice does not provide you with, because you're working not just with lawyers, you're working with business and finance and the creative set of people. So your answers can't be like very like complicated legal language. It has to be simple. So how you understand and interpret laws is also a lot more thorough when you're working as in-house counsel. So I think a blend of both in whichever order is will be good if you're looking at setting up your own practice.
Ma'am, next question is by Astha. She says she's asking that currently how much litigation can we see in this industry, especially the tech space, considering that the laws are still not in place? Or do you think that the industry is more centered towards risk advisory at present?
There's actually a fair amount of litigation. In fact, there's a lot of litigation right now, because of the fact that the laws are so loosely worded, or we don't have adequate laws for it. So starting from data privacy, starting from content regulations, starting then you also have like regulatory litigation against, like, it could be like finance related. So RBI or I don't know, like banking and finance kind of sectors which impact, players in the fintech industry. You have litigation in that area as well. So I don't really, there's no dearth of litigation, if that's what you're thinking. If you're looking at going into tech litigation, this is a great time, because laws are evolving, And as a part of the practicing, or like the lawyers who litigate and practice in court, you have a chance to actually be part of um, modifying and changing the laws that impact such a, you know, dynamic industry which is changing every day. So risk advisory is more an in-house kind of thing. So you, even in a law firm setup, you do have the litigation team, where in the litigation team you have people who will focus on tech, and who will focus on real estate, and who will focus on commercial litigation, all of that. So that those options are there, and you need to pick which city you're in. So litigation for tech is, I think, most prominent in Delhi, and you have a chance to be part of, uh, I think like it's like the heart of policy making, right? So a lot of, like, you know, Ikigai, you have IRA law. These are all like law firms who are involved in like technology, policy making, and litigation around all of this. So it's a great space to be in. Like Ikigai has been instrumental in maybe like impacting how cryptocurrency and blockchain work in India today. So it's you have a lot of potential there.
Okay. So, thank you, ma'am. I guess we'll not take any more questions, but there are a lot of questions that people right now have. So, if they want to reach you, can you tell them how they can reach you? Is it LinkedIn or email?
Email is helpful, because LinkedIn sometimes I might not end up seeing the messages, but email is great. So that's sandhya@lexic.in. I can just ping it here. And the podcast name is Lex Talk Music.
Okay, so
Oh,
ma'am,
and
any
you
final advice?
you can also follow me on Instagram. I mean, I'm very, very active there. So I might not always respond to DMs, but feel free to send me. If I'm able to see it, I will definitely reply. But email, I will check. So,
Okay. Any, ma'am, final advice before we close today?
wow, you're making me feel very old saying this. But um, I think more importantly, like, you can try and have fun. You know, like 15 years of being a lawyer, sometimes I think I've probably taken like work a little too seriously. And that's great, like having a passion. And I got lucky. I'm very thankful for the experiences that I've had, good and bad, because I think that has what it has given me today. I can enjoy what I'm doing. And I understand that not everybody has access to something like that, of the privilege of getting that. And it's something that I'm thankful for every day. Uh, just, I think, very practical advice: keep reading up about the industry that you're interested in. You have no idea how much that helps you. Like, even if you don't have time to read that time, just bookmark it and read it later. And that's the biggest thing about being a lawyer. Information is your USP. Because anything else, you can go to any lawyer anywhere to like do stuff. Why does someone want to talk to a specific lawyer? Because they have access to certain kinds of information, or they've been able to process certain kinds of information that you have not had access to as a client. So information is your USP. So do as much as information harvesting as you can, and have fun if you can while you're doing it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was a great session. Like for me personally, I enjoyed it. All the
Thank
anecdotes,
you.
everything in between. Again, thank you
Thank you.
so much for being on the platform. And then everybody else, thank you so much for being here on Saturday. I hope you guys learned. I hope you guys had fun like we did. So
Yeah.
thank you. We'll be closing today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good night, everyone. Thanks. Take care.